Liam Crowley of The Direct here with one of the most unique triple threats in Hollywood. This woman acts, produces, and even does her own death-defying stunts in action projects across the entertainment sphere, which you'll be able to see her execute in just 1 week. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the stars of The Matrix Resurrections, Miss Ellen Hollman. Ellen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Liam. And one thing you forgot is underwater basket weaving. I'm a professional at that too. So, you need to add that to the long resume you were ever so generous with there.
Wow, I don't even know what category that goes in. That's just like a miscellaneous skill. I absolutely love it. But The Matrix hit in theaters next week as well as on HBO Max. The fourth time we're seeing a Matrix movie in live action. What attracted you to this project?
The Matrix, the fact that it is one of the most epic cinematic pop culture phenomenons in the history of humankind. That is, I don't think that the Matrix attracts you. It's this synergy. It goes both ways, and it happened perfectly the way that it did. And I'm still pinching myself. I'm still pinching myself.
Absolutely. I mean, how can you not? Like you said, it's The Matrix after all. And first time in theaters in, I believe, almost 2 decades. It's wild to see it back in the pop culture sphere. I know we can't talk specifics about your character, but is there anything you can tease viewers with what they can expect from Ellen Hollman in this movie?
Well, essentially, if you do your own due diligence with the Easter eggs that have been laid out there with recent trailers and recent snippets that Warner Brothers has released, then you can put those pieces together. The brilliant mind of Lana Wachowski is that she loves to leave crumbs for the fan base, which is an international fan base and that has spanned over 2 decades. And I think that's what really separates Matrix from other franchises is that it doesn't take its audience for granted. It lets you do the homework. It doesn't just spell everything out on the screen. It opens up the opportunity for you to come up with your own theories, your own thoughts, your own questions. And if you blink in the trailer, you'll miss something that is a whole storyline. In fact, I have some friends and family from just across the globe that will like text or email me screenshots, and I'll be like, where did you get this? I didn't think like that the public was allowed to see this. So there's even some things that as cast you miss it because it's so quick, and only the keen of mind and eye can pick up on those little nuances, which is not accidental. A lot of thought has gone into that on behalf of Lana Wachowski.
You'd be surprised how much fans are in depth analyzing these trailers. I come from a generation where all movie trailers are on YouTube, and frame by frame analysis is a lot easier than you would think when it comes to people breaking down stuff.
Right. So in regards to your question, Liam, that same due diligence, if you were to go frame by frame, particularly on the most recent trailer, which is entitled Deja Vu, you can get some questions answered there. Not all, in fact, more questions may spawn from this homework. However, it will answer some, but open up a lot more.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get our answers next week. But in terms of preparing for this movie, it's been in development for a while, and The Matrix dates back to the early 2000s. Since the movies came out, there's been books and video games kind of expanding the lore and whatnot. How did you prepare for this role and to get immersed into this world? Was it just the movies, or did you also kind of dive into some of the other lore in, novels, video games, etc.?
Yeah, so I did dive in. I did buy the comics. I did read any piece of literature that Lana has put out there. I did my due diligence there, and of course, rewatched the franchise more than once. And it's really interesting revisiting it because it was such an influential masterpiece back in its day. I mean, it redefined the pop culture genre, and I beg to say that very few films have even raised up to that level in comparison. And if you watch it again 20 years later, it still stands up. I mean, bullet time is like, what? I feel that so many people have tried to imitate, but it's never replicated ever. And it's still to this day so impactful. And I find that it has a whole new meaning where I am in my life, but it's still, no matter what, it returns us to a world of two realities. there's everyday life, and then the other one that's behind it. So then that's endless opportunities and endless stories and endless. So it never ends. So you, of course, it can make your head explode. It's incredible.
Yeah, we talk about returning to an old franchise, and it's kind of been a reoccurring theme in modern Hollywood of resurrecting, pardon my pun there, but bringing back an old franchise that hasn't seen the light of day and sometimes over a decade. They're not necessarily pumping out sequels every couple of years. And with that kind of comes this idea of reinvigorating the franchise and
Right.
putting a new layer on it. What makes this Matrix movie different and unique from its predecessors?
Well, this is not to be known as the fourth in the franchise. This is, if anything, this is a continuation of the original. So it once again makes us question our reality, but she goes above and beyond in this one, not only in regards to nostalgia, into reuniting Neo and Trinity in a whole other context, but it also, I feel like, is so timely. This has been such an incredibly harrowing year, my God, nearly 2 years on a global scale. And to have something that is reintroduced to our lives at this time, such as Matrix Resurrections, it really puts things into perspective. We were all on lockdown. Regardless of where you were, it hits you. The past year globally hit everyone, and it made you reevaluate your life's choices. It made you reevaluate, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I don't think it's a coincidence that, once again, Matrix perfectly arrives when it's meant to arrive, is here to remind us of those choices, or the illusion of choice. I really do think it's unbelievably kismet and unbelievably timely.
That is a really, really cool perspective. And when I go see this movie, I kind of want to look at it with that layer, because I feel like, as you mentioned, modern times mixed with a fourth installment, but more of a follow-up to the original, creates for a very unique viewing experience. And I really dig that.
Right. Absolutely. It's, what other realities are out there that we're living? And at any moment, can that change just with a thought? So
I really like that. That's very cool. I do want to kind of switch to kind of behind the camera stuff. In terms of the Matrix, for starters, so much talent in this movie. Keanu Reeves and Neil Patrick Harris come to mind, just two off the top. Were there any actors or actresses you shared scenes with, or even just got to chat with on set, that you took away something in terms of an acting experience?
yes, well, Keanu Reeves has actually been part of the family per se for quite a few years now. My husband, Stephen Dunleavy, was one of the coordinators of Matrix, and as well as the John Wick franchise. So he's been working with Keanu for years now, and they're on an extremely friendly basis. In fact, when I went over to visit on John Wick 4, I was shadowing the director, who's a mentor of mine, Chad Stahelski, and I'd be behind monitor with my notes, and KR would come and have a seat, and we basically talk about jujitsu like 90% of the time. But he's once again just raising the bar on not only who he is as a person, but as a performer. I mean, after decades and decades, he's still managed to maintain the throne. And it's not through shoving people out of the way. On the contrary, he's one that doesn't like to draw attention to himself, doesn't like to be the center of the universe per se. And you would never imagine that someone so humble and wonderful has achieved so many accolades. And then also on that same throw line is Carrion Moss. She literally and physically held my hand through some of the challenges that I faced on this film, both physically and psychologically. She's like, I've been there before, and you can do this. And she was incredibly inspirational. And then I was also reunited with Jessica Henwick, who plays Bugs in this installment. We worked together on Love and Monsters with Dylan O'Brien and Michael Rooker over in Australia. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's adorable. It's like an action comedy, sci-fi monster movie that is an absolute blast. And we definitely switched gears a little bit with this one, but we both were cast around the same time. In fact, she was there when Lana cast me, and she was there at my husband's stunt facility, 8711, and she was training with the boys who were my family. I've been training with them for years, and Lana and I were talking. It wasn't an audition; it was actually like an hour conversation of saying who I was as a person. She's really big on family, and as Lana leaned over and gave me a hug, Jess is looking at me like, I'm like, oh my God. So we were having a total fangirl moment. Then, of course, as soon as I finished my embrace with Lana, I was like, keep it cool. Just keep it cool. Just keep it cool. But inside, you're screaming. You're screaming. It's unbelievable. I'm still pinching myself.
To work with your heroes just has to be like the coolest thing ever. I mean, to hear those kind of experiences, it just makes me smile, because it's like, it's not just a job when it comes to acting. It's actually fun, and it's like a full circle dreams come true moment.
Right. It's fun, but it's in that moment, and even while I was filming, there was never a question as to whether I deserved to be there. There was never a moment where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I belong here. I've been in the industry nearly 20 years now. And at this point, I'm like, yes, I deserve to be here. This is where I belong. There is no other place that I am meant to be than right here. There was a question of, oh my God, physically, this one is going to be a doozy. This one's going to be a doozy, because this particular role, Lana was looking for something very specific from a physical standpoint, not just facial features, but height and size and everything, and ability. So she either wanted to hire a stunt performer who could act, or she wanted to hire an actress who was able to do action. So fortunately, I have a history in mixed martial arts, so I was able to hopefully exceed her expectations and do that. But there was a bit of, oh, okay, this is gonna be intense. But
That does,
that's what's so exciting about it.
yeah, and that does kind of lead perfectly into my next question, because you mentioned your jujitsu background, your husband working with stunts all the time, and you doing a lot of your own stunts. Are there any stunts that you won't do? Any ones that you're like, all right, maybe that's a little too much for me? Or is Ellen
Yeah,
Hollman just fearless when it comes to being on
yeah.
set?
So I've had one of my dearest friends, who's an incredible stunt woman and choreographer, is Lauren Shaw. So she was my riding double on Spartacus. She's an incredible driver as well. So horses and cars, no. Like I will leave that up to her. I will leave that up to her. Those are the incredible men and women who are in the stunt industry. Like they deserve their accolades. They deserve to have that credit. I am merely a performer who from time to time loves to beat up the boys on the playground.
I love that. And I'm sure we're going to get to see a lot of cool stunts when The Matrix Resurrections hits theaters next week. I said in the intro, triple threat. We've talked about two of the three, both, your stunt performances and your acting. You are doing a lot more producing nowadays, though. You have a bunch of credits on your IMDb. I know you're producing Don't Suck, which comes out very, very soon. Or has it already hit theaters?
No. In fact, we're in post-production. So Don't Suck is a comedy with Matt Rife and Jamie Kennedy, directed by RJ Collins. And it was such a breath of fresh air to be in the comedic genre, to be in that world for some time. And I was co-starring with Jamie Kennedy, but also behind the camera, behind monitor, as producer, sometimes coaching, sometimes setting up shots, sometimes just giving my opinion in regards to script and story. And this is a world that I've been delving into for a few years now, and it just clicks. It just feels right. There's only so many castle ramparts you can jump off of. There's only so many gladiatorial arenas you can backflip over. There's only so many times that you can, put yourself in harm's way before finally you're like, okay. I think maybe I'll delve behind the scenes for a bit, which of course is why I've been setting up myself for producing directorial avenue. And I've had some incredible shoulders to stand on, such as I mentioned before, Chad Stahelski, who directs the John Wick franchise. He's my jiu-jitsu mentor and mentor in many other arenas. So he kicks my ass on the mats, and also from a production standpoint. So yes, I have a lot to learn, but I'm keen to show up and do it.
And I've spoken with a couple other actresses and actors before who do balance the two between producing and acting. And I'm always fascinated to hear the responses when it comes to balancing the two, because it varies depending on who you're talking to or depending on the film in general. Obviously, you doing a lot more action stuff is very different, like you said, than say a comedy. So when it comes to approaching a film where you know you're going to be in front of the camera, but also going to do a lot of work behind the camera, how do you divide time?
Well, you have to trust your team. So you have to trust the team that you're working with. So if you're producing and you're also performing, you have to trust your director that he's capturing what you want. However, there is the ability to see playback, which is very helpful. I recently just collaborated with one of the 87 directors, Larnell Stovall, who is one of the directors on Titans. And we've collaborated recently, and he was overseas actually directing Continental, part of the John Wick world, and he wasn't able to be there for one of the shoot days. So I was able to step up from producing and a directorial standpoint, and I was also performing with my co-star Tate Fletcher. You can see in The Mandalorian, he's all over the place, and there's a lot of action involved in this, and I would call my own action. So I'd literally be like, okay, cool, let's pick it up from this point, but let's take it back 2 beats so we can cut into it. Okay, let's pull camera around here. All right, 3, 2, 1, action. We do the whole bit. I'm like, cool, see playback. Okay, that hit didn't sell. Okay, cool, let's angle the camera here. So it's trusting your team. You are no greater or worse than any other spoke in the wheel. And I think that's a huge misnomer in this industry, that they think the actor is the most important one or the director is the most important one. It does not matter how amazing your performance is. It does not matter what incredible directorial notes you give if A, you're not lit well, if B, your focus isn't pulled correctly, if C, scripty isn't doing continuity and you can't and things don't match. Like every spoke in the wheel is what enables a cinematic masterpiece or even just a good show to survive. So you really have to trust your team.
Yeah, my background is in broadcast, and whenever we would do our local newscasts, I would always say, at the very end, it takes a village. You need people in audio, you need people in control, you need people running cameras, because at the end of the day, like you said, one small thing wrong domino affects everything. So I really love that perspective. I do have to ask you, because we are a big Marvel, DC, Star Wars website. We cover a lot of the big popcorn films. Are there any dream roles you have in the comic book genre? Because I know you do a lot of stunts. The Matrix is almost teetering on that level of film in terms of what it's going for in its genre. Are there any roles or maybe even just franchises that have stuck out to you that you say, I want to dip my toes in that water?
Well, what's really funny is growing up, I was actually a total superhero nerd. I particularly loved the X-Men, and my favorite character was always Rogue. I just loved her southern sass and just the way she was she didn't apologize for her weaknesses at all, and she was just, which was human touch really. she it was and just her energy and presence from a comic standpoint just really jumped off the page to me. And my siblings and I used to always watch X-Men, like the cartoons on Saturday. I have Rogue's first appearance comic. I have one of her first action figures still in the box. So to embody Rogue would be incredible.
Who knows? Maybe we'll see some white streaks in your hair in a couple of years. We'll have to keep a lookout.
I'm telling you, after all the action in Matrix, there may be some white streaks.
Naturally, of course. Before we wrap this up, I did want to kind of get a tease of your future projects. 2022 is obviously going to be a big year for everyone. So much stuff is coming out. What can viewers expect from Ellen Hollman in the new year?
So they can keep their eyes out for Don't Suck. And then I'm currently producing a project with Larnell Stovall, which I can't announce the title quite yet for that. And then there are some projects in the work right now that works that we're looking to collaborate with Chad Stahelski. So there will be some fun announcements coming up that I cannot mention yet, but they're extremely exciting, and it's the next chapter for me.
Very, very exciting. Well, until then, you can see Ellen Hollman in her undisclosed role in The Matrix Resurrections, hitting theaters and HBO Max this month. Ellen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.